Welcome to the Mom Founders Table. Pull up a chair and join me every week as I become your thought partner and help you lead to create change. I'm your host, Kelsey Kenry, entrepreneur, millionaire mom of three, and strategic business coach for established mom entrepreneurs. Every week, you will get tactical guidance to apply to your business, leadership, and life that will help you further your true success while also being invited into a new way of thinking and being that creates true freedom. I'm here to call you out and call you up, so take a seat and let's begin. Welcome back to another episode of the Mom Founders Table, and today we are wrapping up our three-part series on parenting and entrepreneurship with my husband, my partner in crime, Eric Kenry. And we promised you guys that on this episode, we would be handing you the keys to the kingdom, aka tools, techniques, ways to communicate with your kids, tactical things to plant into your relationship with your children, your day-to-day lives. And so we are going to do just that today. So have a seat, grab a pen. If you're driving, don't grab a pen. Just keep driving and listening. But there is going to be some very good information in this episode that is going to help you to feel like a better parent. And before we get into today, I just wanted to say that if you feel like you are struggling with parenting or you are struggling in your relationships at all because of the busyness of your business, because of the stress of your business, I have released something called the Strategic Reset. And the Strategic Reset is an incredible opportunity for me to assess and audit your business so that you can gain momentum again. And so that you can do things in the right way, because we know that what got you to where you are is not going to get you where you want to go. And there's a point that we all hit where we recognize what we're doing is simply not sustainable. This reset gives you very tactical tools and change for your business. I am looking at 8 different areas, evaluating all of these things and bring to light the things that you can't see because you are too close to your business. And so with this, you will be able to reduce the amount of time that you're working, reduce your stress, reduce your overwhelm, and of course, add revenue, but most importantly, profit to your numbers. So if you have not already booked your reset, make sure that you book that today, because you do not want to spend another 6 months, another year telling yourself that it's going to be different after the next milestone. So let's get into today. Welcome back, babe. Happy to be here, interrupted by dogs, children, all the things. We'll see what happens in this episode today. So it's time to give the people what they want, right? So they're listening because they are moms and they're struggling with the balance of parenting and entrepreneurship, as we all do. And we have to figure out how to actually navigate the very real pressure that it is to do both. And so what are maybe, let's say, the top 3 tools or techniques that you have put in place with our children that you feel like make you a better parent?
Well, first and foremost, and this is the answer that a lot of people don't want to hear, but it is the absolute truth.
We love those.
Yes. Because everybody wants those actionable steps they can do that will just create this huge paradigm shift. It's not that easy. But the number one, I don't need to rank them, but I will say this is the most important one. And I think Kelsey will agree. The most important thing you can do to improve the relationship with your children is to take care of yourself. And that looks different for everybody, but I think a constant, no matter who you are, is you need to exercise and you need to eat right. And you can make time for both of these things. I know it can be hard, especially with your schedule, business, with kids, but you have to make time for yourself to exercise, move your body, and also fuel your body. And those 2 things will create a massive change in your life in every way. But really, when you're parenting, the hardest thing to do is parent when you feel bad. Probably stop drinking. Like parenting when you feel not your best is it just makes it that much harder. You're already fighting from a deficit. So like when you're hungover, for one, I'm not even get into the drinking thing because we've seen massive benefits from it, but I think just drinking less is gonna have a net positive effect.
Which let's celebrate really quick because as of this day of filming, yesterday was 450 days since we've had alcohol.
Yeah, and everybody's journey with that is different, but I'm happy to report that it's been very easy for us. I know it's not the same for everybody, but we were just always social drinkers, so it was never like a recreation, like a fun. The act of drinking wasn't fun; it was what we did when we got drunk.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. I'm like, I was honestly, just because of my history, only drinking a few times a year, so it was pretty easy to remove it. But it's just like you get to a certain point where you realize, like you're saying, the best thing that you can do for other people is to do the best things for yourself.
Right, right, and you have to be feeling your best, and it's all relative, but feeling your best to parent your best. And it's unrealistic to believe that you're going to be at your best every single day, but you can set yourself up for success by making time in the early morning hours, especially if your lifestyle allows it. Thankfully, we are blessed to have the option of working out before kids get up because we have a whole new gym. Another investment that I think will pay dividends over time is investing in some equipment in your house. You don't have to have the full set of like meeting, which is something that allows you to wake up, roll out of bed, drink your coffee, and do your meditation, read your book, and then go get after, get your sweat on, get moving. You don't have to lift weights, but and Kelsey and I.
You have to lift weights.
Yeah, Kelsey.
You should be lifting weights.
I don't like.
It's like start somewhere if you're not doing this at all.
Right.
But I also think it's interesting because there's all of these people that are like, this 5 a.m. like grind club. And then you have particularly women who are like, oh, but like, you don't have to do that to be successful. And I'm like, no, you don't. But I think there's a difference in like getting up at 5 a.m. and like going to bed at like 11 p.m. or midnight and just like grinding and then running yourself into the ground. And like we get in bed between 8:30 and 9 o'clock to get up at 5. And like it's not about we don't get up at 5 a.m. because we're hardcore. We get up at 5 a.m. because we want to feel good, because I want to show up for my kids, for him, for our family, but also for my business, for my team, for everybody that depends on me. Like all those people, like the pressure that we feel in entrepreneurship is from responsibility, and like to be able to have the capacity to hold that responsibility requires care for self.
And there are some people out there watching this right now saying, can I work out at night? Yes, you can. But
will you?
But will you? You're a business owner, you are a high performer, you have a lot on your plate already. I think that you'll agree, if you really weigh out the pros and cons, working out at the end of the day is going to be a lot harder than working out at the beginning of the day. You have to sacrifice a little bit of sleep, but like Kelsey said, stop burning midnight oil. You don't have to do that. You have plenty of time during the day to get your work done. You don't get bonus points for working after your kids go to bed. As a matter of fact, we have a rule. We don't do any of that. And we might do, some casual Instagram, social media stuff, some writing, but we're not busting out our laptops after we put the kids to bed.
And anytime I do it, I regret it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not doing that. It's like, it's so rare. And it's usually when there's some sort of transition or like whatever that it's like, but it just doesn't, the boundaries with self, like all of this, like having discipline and putting yourself, your physical and your mental health first. I think that's the biggest tool, because it's like, even in reactivity, right? Like when we're short and when we're yelling at our kids and stuff, it's like, well, that's because we don't feel good. Anytime that I've been short with the kids or like, not want to deal with them or whatever, it's because I like didn't sleep good or because I'm anxious about something. It's never like, it's not their fault.
When you pull up the laptop, I'm like, oh shit. Well, I'm not sure having fun. She's in the weeds or something's stressing her out, but she has to get it out,
Yeah. And I think that's the reality of entrepreneurship, is like so many people just accept that as the norm.
Right.
And for us, I'm like, I am not working after my kids go to bed. And it's like worst case scenario. And so it's like we still also we have still have the freedom and flexibility to where it's like, say I didn't work all day because we went to Disney with the kids or something.
Yeah.
That's a different scenario. And that's cool that we have the flexibility, but I think it just, for so many people, it just becomes the norm of like they're filling every waking second with work, which is just going to lead to.
I think that we could have easily done an entire episode on just exercise, nutrition.
I did a whole wellness series. If you haven't listened to that, I address all of this. If you didn't know this already, Eric and I are both former fitness and health coaches. We both spend time competing in bodybuilding and powerlifting. We coach powerlifting teams. We were heavily immersed in that world. And that is one thing, like one of our biggest values, and one of the things that like we have always done together, even as frustrating as it was for Eric to teach me how to deadlift. This poor man and my coordination just could not. But here we are. I've been training now for 15 years consistently, 14 years. So anyways, that's tool number one, is take care of yourself.
Yeah, I think that I could have, even if I really want to separate these, I want to stretch it out, taking care of yourself could be a lot of things, and I could have done a whole list, but if it's meditation, if it's yoga, if it's Pilates, if it's CrossFit, whatever you do that makes you feel good, that is what you need to do. And eating right is part of that. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but it's true. The older you get, the more your body feels how to treat it. When you're younger, you can get away with a lot of stuff. Eat a lot of trash, sleep very little, and still have great workouts. The older you get, and the more that is heaped on your plate, the harder it's going to be to bounce back from those things. So stop drinking so much, stop eating so much trash food, and start moving your body more. And I promise, parenting will become easier. It won't become easy. It will become easier because you'll feel better. You feel better, you parent better, and everybody benefits.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like it comes back to like controlling what you can control. And that's like something I speak about often, is like in these situations, whether it's business, parenting, relationships, any of it, like you can only control yourself in the situation. And so I think there's like controlling, like when whatever stimulus comes, or how you respond to it is like, that's within your control. We can't control the external factors. We can't control when a kid gets sick. We can't control, when a kid gets in trouble at school. We can't control it. There's all these things that are outside of our control. And as women who want to control everything, we have this like grasp on these things that are out of our control. And it's such wasted energy expenditure. And if we were to take that energy and instead pour into ourselves, instead, take that 10 minutes, even if it's literally, even if you woke up 15 minutes before your kids and you spent 5 minutes meditating and like 10 minutes moving, or like 5 minutes meditating and 10 minutes reading, or whatever, some sort of combination that like truly fills your cup, which only you know. I really think that that's where, that's the key to a lot of things. And it's like you said, it's what people don't want to hear because it requires behavioral change.
Right. Nobody wants to get out of their comfort zone. But if you want to make significant change, that's part of it. I mean, it's ironic that so many people are willing to grind themselves into dust for their business, but will not do the bare minimum to take care of their bodies and their minds.
Which without that, you have no business.
Right.
Like
you are the business.
Right. I've had multiple clients who have had, like, they went to the hospital because they were getting sick all the time, or it's like they've been on medication for depression or anxiety. That's all coming from the stress of their business. So it's really like, we could talk about this for hours, but it's really like your health mentally and physically is the most important thing for all aspects, but definitely when it comes to parenting. So what else?
Number 2 would be put your phone away. If you have a business, you are going to be on your phone a lot. That's just the nature of the game in 2025. Everything you do, you can probably, for your business, you can probably do on short of, high-end video production and things like that, or recording a podcast. Because if you had to, you could do all that stuff on your phone.
Yeah.
I edit videos on my phone. I write copy on my phone. I do all sorts of stuff on my phone. I also, have relationships with people that aren't in the same state, so I talk on my phone a lot to them via social media. And what I've noticed after Kelsey pointed this out is that maybe she knows it with herself first, but when you're around your kids and you're trying to do things related to work, whether it's, chasing the leads or just, standard stuff, things that shouldn't take that long. But if you're doing those things around your kids, your kids are being kids, I've found that it triggers me so much quicker and so much more. There's more intensity to the reaction because in my head, I'm like, I'm just trying to do work right now. And or I would say expectations, they are not allowing me to do that. Mm-hmm. And you start to get this little, this resentment starts to build. And it's kind of a cycle where you resent them for not behaving in that moment. And then you snap and you're very reactive. You can avoid all of this. And also, too, there's the distraction issue as well. When you're around your kids, you should be with your kids. You should be paying attention to your kids, not your phone. So whether you're mindlessly scrolling on Instagram or Twitter or whatever you're doing, watching videos or, I don't know, brain rot stuff, it's distracting you from your kids. So lean into your kids in those moments, focus on them. They notice when you're not paying attention to them, and they're more likely to act out when you aren't paying attention. Because to a kid, any attention is good attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. And I think it's just like our attention span is so short and we're trying to do so much. And it's like the multitasking is like, you can literally, multitasking is the worst thing. And yet, as moms, it's like we are consistently in positions, or as parents, we're consistently in positions where we feel like we have to multitask. And I use those words specifically because we don't actually have to multitask. We feel like we have to. But if you have multiple kids, right, and it's like, okay, you're already multitasking because there's multiple children, and then you add a component on that of like answering client messages or something like that, it's just like that is, you're not going to be in the right headspace. And something that always helps me is I think about like the people on the receiving end of that, right? Like if I'm trying to write an email while like my kids are fighting or something, I'm probably going to like have a typo or forget like half of the email or something because you're not focused. And that's why I'm so big on like work-life separation, because that's actually how a lot of balance is created, because it's not about your time being spent in equal parts. It's more about like you being where you are and removing distractions. So it's the same thing, like you can get more work done in less time if you just focus on one thing at a time. It's the same for parenting, right? Like you can be, it's not about that you need to spend, all of these hours one-to-one with every kid every single day. It's about like when you're with them, like be with them.
You have to set firm boundaries for yourself, and you have to stay disciplined with those.
And it's hard.
It is. It is, especially like when you feel that crunch that you really have to get that email done or that website copy written or you have to talk to this lead you've got. It can be hard to put the phone down, but I promise you, anything that you're doing in that moment is going to be there an hour or 2 hours later. You're not going to lose out on anything by sacrificing focus and time with your kids. I mean, even the boundaries thing is that you're not going to take care of yourself, and then you're going to feel terrible, and you won't perform at your best as a parent. And then maybe your business is doing okay, but everything else suffers. And that, as Kelsey has talked about ad nauseum, is not a worthwhile exchange.
Yeah, and that's what I have to plug here about getting a work phone. And I think that's been one of the most helpful things for me and for a lot of my clients is sometimes we need that physical boundary. Sometimes it's just being honest with yourself about like the social media apps, email, like literally the little red notification bubble is that color because of what it does to our brain. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to also be realistic and be honest with yourself about like if if you are seeing things coming in and you're somebody who's just like tells yourself like, oh, let me just take care of that really quick, or let me just respond really quick, then like you're also building that pattern of reactivity. And so I think there's nothing wrong with being honest with yourself about separation that you need. You know, like you don't have to just be like, okay, well, I'm not going to go on my phone during these hours or whatever, and then just expect yourself to do it. Like, put your phone in a different room or get a work phone. Like, my work phone is not an actual phone line, it's literally just an old phone that works on Wi Fi and I can use my hotspot. But all of my social media and my work apps are on that phone because I know that if it's not accessible to me, then my brain's not even going to think about it because it's like, oh, that's not even an option to check that right now. And so I think there's also just like the reality of asking yourself, you know, whether it's your phone or something else, like what is preventing you from showing up as the parent that you want to? Like, what is distracting you? What are you in times where you want to show up for these people? What are the things that are pulling you away? Right. And if you answer that honestly and it's like, oh, well, I'm scheduling a 5 o'clock meeting with this client every week and my kids get home at 3:30 after school. And it's like, you have to move the client, right? Like you have to make a harder decision for a better long term, for your better for longevity, right? Like for sustainability. And that's where a lot of business owners get stuck because everything is so hyper focused on doing things as fast as possible. And faster is not better when you're killing yourself in the process.
A lot of good trait.
Right. Right. Because it sucks to be in a position where it's like you're making money, you're doing good work, you're impacting all of these people, and yet you feel empty or you're ignoring your marriage or you're ignoring your children. Like that's why it's like I always talk about like I don't want to look back and regret. Like I love my work. I'm addicted to achieving and continuous improvement. And I also am endlessly grateful for how far I've come already and where I am now. And there is like I think that's the beauty of both. So taking care of yourself, getting rid of your phone as a distraction.
Well, distractions in general, but the phone is probably the every.
Yeah, for sure. What else?
Lastly, I would say that you need to prioritize your relationship with your partner. And this comes from a place of, from my personal experience. I'm not, if you have a co-parent situation, I cannot give you advice. I'm very big on staying in my lane. So this is advice for women who have husbands. And I think it's really important that you prioritize your relationship for a number of reasons. First and foremost, if you are both happy, which is usually what happens when you prioritize a relationship, you will both parent better. When you prioritize a relationship as well, you will get more time together, which allows you to talk more about everything, but specifically parenting and how you can, how you guys can be better parents. You can strategize. You can talk about ways to manage your time better. How whose job is what. How you can talk to your kids better. I know we've had plenty of conversations since I began my program about how we talk to our kids, and I've become a lot more cognizant of the words I use, and Kelsey's held me accountable, and I've held her accountable for the way we speak to our children, and we both improved because of that. But we could not have done that if we didn't make time for each other. And it's very easy when you are in business and you work a lot to push stuff to the side. Some people, and I know it's a lot, right? Like we talked about a lot of things you need to do. I think the big lie is that you don't need to sacrifice anything to be successful. That's not true. You're always going to have to sacrifice something, but you don't have to sacrifice the most important aspects of your life. There's a compromise that needs to be made, no matter what. For me, I don't play as many video games as I would like. That's it is what it is. That's a small price to pay, honestly. But I'm sure Kelsey would want to read more books. Maybe she go to Pilates every day. She could. She might. She might be one of those. Turn one of those ladies.
Work out like 4 times.
Yeah. Because it's fun. It makes you feel good. It's fun. But you can't sacrifice your relationship with your partner. You can't sacrifice your relationship with your children, especially because you're should be with your partner the rest of your life. But your kids you might have a couple of years before they're out of the house, and then you might not talk to them as much as you think you will. So it's about prioritizing the things that are most important at this point in your life, and your relationship with your partner is very important. Your health is important. We already talked about that, and your relationship with your kids is important, which we already talked about on the phone. So, but prioritizing your relationship with your partner because they are your teammate, and you guys run the house together. You are, you're a tag team. If you guys aren't on the same page and you're not getting along and you're not feeling close, and it's not going to run. That team is not going to run the same way it should.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, with that, you kind of segued into how I want to wrap this up, and that is with like some tactical ways of like communicating with our kids. So we both know from our experience in our relationship with each other, all the work that we've done on ourselves, from leadership, from all these things that like your language and the words that you choose are really, really important. So let's walk through a hypothetical scenario, right? So let's say someone listening, she's very busy, she's buried in her work, she's stressed out by her business. Maybe she's either working in the home or outside of the home, and she's trying to wrap up her day. She's feeling a little bit frazzled, and then kids come home from school, or she goes and picks up the kids, and now she's got all this stuff on her mind from work, and she's got all these kids in front of her that she needs to be present for. What should she do to not lose her shit on her kids?
That doesn't sound like a hypothetical. I feel like that's your own personal experience. That's a to a T. That's like your almost every day during the school year. So I think that I would recommend number one, we already talked about, put your phone away. You gotta set that boundary, okay? When the kids come home, you know you have a lot of work. But what's gonna be easier? Trying to do the work with the kids running around, or just waiting till after they go to bed and doing the work then. Again, impossible to not sacrifice something. But let's pick a sacrifice that's not going to damage your relationship with your children. Lean into the kids. Give them the attention. They've been at school all day. They've been out of the house. All they want to do, and I'm speaking from my perspective as well. When I talk to dads, like dads who are the breadwinners as well, or the main providers who spend all day out of the house working, they come home and they're tired too, and they just want to relax. But that is a sense of entitlement that we have to lose as working people. Whether you're a man or a woman, you come home, those kids are still your children. And it's unrealistic to expect them to understand that you just worked 9 hours, 10 hours, and you just had the traffic was bad, the deal you thought you had fell through. That's not their fault. Okay. Yeah, lean into the relationship with your kids. Every time that I ever tried to disassociate, it never worked out well. And I'm sure you've had moments like that too. You're like, let me just pick my phone, let me just do some stuff, and it never works out well. When you have 3 kids, especially, you can't kick your eyes off them because shit's gonna get crazy. If they just, especially once they come home from school, they've used up all their control juice. They're all their discipline. That cup is empty. Yeah. They're coming home, they're gonna get crazy. So if you're not paying attention to them, giving them the attention they want from you, they desire from you, it's gonna come back. And it's a bad release too. So like, as tired as you are, as much as you want focus on that work stuff, and there's a ton of stuff on your plate. You have to compartmentalize effectively and make time for your children in that moment. It's really, what are we talking about here? Kids come home from school, you got like maybe 3 or 4 hours before bedtime. That's assuming there's no after school activities, which there usually is. So you might get an hour or two with them if you're lucky.
Yeah.
We're lucky. We get a lot of time with our kids, but some people don't. They have a lot of extracurriculars. Kids are older, make an hour or two, and you have to really prioritize your children. And I think that will fill your cup in a way that will actually benefit your business. I think that the worst thing you can do is when your kids come home is to try to continue to work, and then you're not putting forth quality effort because you're distracted. Your kids don't get your full attention. And then who knows what happens between then and bedtime. And by the time you get to bedtime, you are resenting your kids because you have to do this work that's not that well done. And then on top of that, there's probably some meltdowns here and there. You didn't handle that well. You're being reactive. You're not going to be a fun mom or dad. And that's what kids want. They want you to be happy. They want you to play with them. They want you to read books, and they don't want you to be angry or distracted. So you have to give them, as hard as it is, you have to give them yourself. And what that looks like is different for everybody. Whether you need to breathe through some moments, listen to music with them, whatever you need to do. It's hard to calm them down like I'm home from school, but sometimes if you need to run around with them, you probably got some energy built up, doesn't hurt. Move your body with them. So, but you gotta, and this is something I've started with you gotta lean into the time your kids want your attention the most are always the times where you have the least to give. But that's when you gotta lean in, and it's so rewarding when you finally do it. You put your phone away and you just spend an hour with them, just doing. And go figure, they're way easier to deal with when you actually pay attention to them.
Yeah, and I think, from my perspective and what has helped me, and these are things that we have talked about, is creating some sort of separation. And so, for me, working from home and then having the kids come home and I'm trying to wrap up stuff and then going straight into parenting, that's when it's like I need some sort of something. And so whether that's like a quick walk around our neighborhood, that's like 5 or 10 minutes in between, but most definitely I always have a shutdown routine. And so it's me going through the same like 3 things to where it's like, okay, answering all team messages, answering all client messages, like closing all my tabs kind of thing. And so to me, that repetition and that step-by-step process allows my brain to be like, we're done for the day. And so I think that's a tactical piece that I would recommend that you implement to separate, your titles, if you will, to where it's like, okay, now I'm moving from CEO into mom. And in order to do that, like we don't want the overlap there. It's called brain residue. Is the technical term. And so we don't want that brain residue to override who we want to be in the next title. And so having a shutdown routine is really, really helpful. The other thing that I would say that's more of like a mental training is the reality of most of our businesses is that like we are not first responders, meaning that if an email doesn't get finished, if something doesn't get sent out, if there's a typo, if there's most business problems, if we really zoom out, are not that big of a deal and are not earth shattering and are definitely not worth us yelling at our kids for. And so that was a lot of the mistakes that I would make. It's like I would let everything, because I care so much about my business and the standard that I'm setting and how I want things to be. And obviously I'm controlling it. So I would let that like overtake my mind and everything would feel really heavy, really urgent, and really important. And so I often like to remind people that, urgency is self-imposed 9 times out of 10. And so when you're getting towards the end of the day, you know that either you have to go get your kids or the kids are coming home, to just look at, okay, here's what's left open-ended. What does that look like for my schedule? Right. So again, another tactical piece of like, go and like drag your tasks over, drag your time blocks over. Like this is your business. And if you're putting too much in your schedule in the day to day, that's obviously something that needs to change. We could talk about that in the strategic reset. Highly recommend that you book that so I can assess and audit your business. But those are two things that I think that are a little more tactical in moving from one title to another, that have helped me to be able to kind of shift. Because the last thing, when like I'm just hopping off a client call or something, maybe we just had a really like deep conversation and my brain's still kind of spinning, to take that and then immediately start to parent, I can't do that. And so that has been really helpful for me. And then communicating that to Eric of like, I need X amount of extra time or whatever. So he knows, he brings them home, gets them water, snack, whatever. And then I can like do my shutdown routine. And that way, when I exit my office, I know that like that exit for me is like, okay, this is wrapped up and this is done, and we'll see it tomorrow.
I was going to say, if you need a buffer like Kelsey does, then it's up to you to communicate that to your partner. Or if your kids are old enough to them, say, hey, mine's 5-10 minutes. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to meditate. Or see to, finish some things up in here. And I'll see you guys out there. Or tell your partner, hey, I need 5-10 minutes. Can you watch the kids? And it's not a big deal. We just have to communicate that. I, as a man, most men, I would say actually all men are not mind readers. So we don't know unless you tell us what you need. So if you need that space, then tell us, and we're glad to help, because we don't want you coming out of the office. And speaking about Kelsey, I want you coming out of the office grumpy.
Yeah, for sure. And it's easy to do when you've just had like a heavy, hard day and you have all these things going on, and it's not the example that, and not the person that you want to be. And so I think that those are tactical things. So that's kind of separation from work and business, and some tactical things and some things to think about. Let's talk about briefly, what are some communication tools specifically with our children that you have utilized that have been helpful?
Besides not losing my shit and yelling, should be a given. If it's not a given to you, you need to, in your advantage, follow me. If you have a husband who thinks that's the way to parent, they also follow me. But I think that validating our child's emotions is number one, because we were raised as millennials to, in many cases, I can't speak for everybody's situation, but your emotions are often trivialized. There's so many sick phrases that I'm reminded of with the baby boomers. I'll give you something to cry about, rub some dirt on it. People just trivialize your pain. Oh, it's not that bad. You get older, you'll understand this. I'm guilty of it. I've been through a lot in my life. Kelsey's been through a lot in her life. So it's really easy to hear a kid whine about something that doesn't seem like a big deal to us, and just, tell them to shrug it off. But they aren't capable of that yet. At least for a kid who's, 8 or 9 years old, 6 years old, 3 years old, like the ones we have. When they're going through stuff, and whether it's a skin knee, or an earache, or maybe they just had a bad day at school, somebody hurt their feelings. It might not seem like a big deal to you, but by validating their feelings, that goes a long way to fortify your relationship with them. Because if you came to somebody and every time you told them that you were hurting or you were upset, and they just brushed you off, you would grow to not trust them and not go to them when you were hurt. So when we validate our child's emotions, no matter how silly, it might seem. So like if our kid can't get out, like Emmy, she's 3.5, she can't get a dress on her baby doll, she's crying, I don't tell her it's not a big deal. I say, it's really frustrating when the dress doesn't go on. She's like, yeah, would you like some help? Sure. Very easy to go, that's silly. Why are you crying? It's a stupid thing to cry about. But once again, it sets a very negative precedent. If you want your children to trust you, and you want your children to come to you, which I imagine you do, then you have to validate their emotions, no matter how ridiculous you might think it is. Because I have dealt with some ridiculous shit. But when I started just leaning in once again and giving them that space to express themselves, and then reflecting back to them what they were going through instead of just brushing it off. I think it's got a lot of that with them.
Okay, so validating emotions, regardless of how crazy, especially when they're 3, they are.
It's
Always.
it's just a logical, just very illogical, irrational stuff.
Yeah, because then they feel seen and they feel heard, and then it's like that's the thing is, I think we mentioned this in one of the other episodes, but for Eric and I, the standard that we try to hold as parents is to make decisions now that are with the long term in mind. That means like making the harder choices and doing the harder things and doing the work that we are actively doing to be able to raise people that will eventually be adults. And I think that's something that I often think about that helps me in times of like, this is a moment in time with a 9-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 3-year-old. But in this moment in time, this is a moment in time that could be one of the audio tapes they play in their head, when they're adults, or this could be the thing that shapes trajectory. And so while that can feel like a lot of pressure, I feel like that's, if you're feeling pressure as a parent, it's not about doing it all right. It's about just being honest with yourself about why you're not meeting your own expectations of what you need to do to change that. So what are any other tools as we wrap up here that would help people to better communicate and build better relationships with their children?
Well, I touched on it previously, but reflective listening is a tactic that I wasn't aware of until I began my parent coaching certification, and I think it goes a long way. You pick your kid up; they have the longest stories you've ever heard, and they are. And I don't mean to be mean, but they're very boring. It's very repetitive stuff, and it seems insignificant to us. It seems tedious, but to them, it's really important. So when, for example, when Cam has to tell me the epic tale of the football game he played at school, it's very easy for as a parent for me just to go, "Oh man, that's awesome! Oh wow!" Or crazy, "That's crazy," which is the standard response. Cool. So my kid tells you something like, "That's cool, man." They know you're not listening. It's I think we don't give our kids enough credit when it comes to that. So the easiest thing to do and this validates them as well. Like, oh yeah, I threw a touchdown. All you gotta do is say, "Oh, you threw a touchdown?" Like, yeah, I threw a touchdown. And they'll keep talking. So every once in a while, make sure you actually have to listen to them for this to work. But don't do them out, as hard as it may seem. When they say, I drew this flower today at school. Oh, you drew a flower? You're like, yeah, and it was blue and it was green and this and that. That goes a long way. Similarly, when a kid does something, don't just tell them it's good. Don't tell them they did a good job, because it becomes white noise at a certain point. Because then they're like, oh, everything I do is good, and eventually nothing is good if everything is good. So when they bring you the drawing or the arts and crafts thing they did, point out something specific. Oh, I like how you use the red on the clown's hair there, or I like how you glue these popsicle sticks together. This is awesome. Yeah, cool. So just the attention to detail with conversations, attention to detail with what they do will create a closer bond with kids. And once again, like Kelsey said, this is for the future. It doesn't seem that significant now. These things build over time, and that's just another relationship in your life. Except now it's a tiny human that you created, and you're going to get to know them, and you want to create that bond with them and that trust. In order to do that, you got to validate their feelings and validate the things they do on a daily basis. And when putting your phone away will go a long way to that, especially when they're trying to show you stuff like the new dance movies or whatever they got going on.
Mommy, watch this.
Yeah, watch this. I really like how you jumped there. That's awesome.
That's a great cannonball for the 47th time.
Yeah, they'll just say, "That's crazy. That's awesome. That's crazy," which is like the reflex sometimes. Oh my God.
Yeah, especially when it's repetitive. But I think this is a good place to wrap up, because I think it's just all connected, right? In order to be able to practice and implement tools like this with the validation and with the reflective listening, with leaning in and giving them the attention without distraction, in order to be able to implement those things, it comes back to you taking care of yourself and prioritizing your own needs. Because as we all know, what's the saying? You can't pour from an empty cup. And so many of us think we are going to like be able to do that until we can't, and then we lose our shit. So if you are somebody who is losing your shit frequently, or if you are married to a man in your household who is losing their shit frequently, make sure that you follow Eric. He is transforming angry dads into chill dads. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, from him being a chill dad, it changes your household, it changes your children. And honestly, it's just breaking generational cycles that all of us with, especially with former parents who like to yell and like to spank, um, are, we were put through that. And so care a lot about breaking these things. And of course, if you need more help in being present in your life while also running a successful business as a mother, make sure that you reach out to me so we can talk about where you are in business and find the best place for you. Once again, the best place to start for most women is going to be in the strategic reset. This is a full assessment and audit of your business so that you can build momentum. And at the end of the day, I'm here to help you create space and to enjoy your life again while also running a really successful and thriving business that supports your family financially, but also so you can be there physically and mentally for the people that you love. So thank you for joining us for this series. Any last words you want to leave the people with?
They're kids. That's it. Every time you get frustrated and you wish you had more time to work, just remember that you have 18 years with them. And if not sooner, they're going to want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So cherish a lot less, enjoy the time where they're all up your ass and they think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, because that will not last forever. All of us who grew up with
It's gonna last forever for us. We are the coolest parents ever, and our kids.
yeah,
I'm
I don't think we're exempt. Like I'm gonna try, but I don't think it's gonna work out. I think that inevitably you're doomed to become uncool when your kid dies. That's all right. As long as I'm a good parent, I will be the most uncool dad alive. As long as my kids remember me as being a good dad, that's my legacy, and that's what I care about. So
Yeah.
just remember it's going to be over in a blink. So don't sacrifice those relationships, those tiny humans, just for some money.
Yeah, exactly. Time is truly your greatest asset. And it is the one thing that we cannot get back. So we have to pay attention to how we're using our time and make sure that we are in alignment with our values. And once again, if you need help doing that, please reach out to me. I would love to partner with you in your business and make sure that you are running a highly profitable business without running yourself into the ground. So thank you guys for being a part of this series, for listening to us today. And thank you, Eric, for your knowledge, your expertise, and your time, and also dealing with me for the last
My pleasure.
last 14 years. All right, guys, we will see you on the next episode. Make sure that you follow Eric. Reach out to me if you need help with your business, and we will talk to you next week on Mom Founders Table.